Hello. This one is one that's been quite possibly the darkest one that I've ever experienced, and it's been unfolding for the last 7 years, I'd say. And it's regarding mental health. I think where I jumped, I ended my 17-year relationship, which was really traumatic and awful, and there was so much guilt that I carried from that, and I didn't deal with anything. I just literally ended that and jumped straight into a new relationship with newborn twin boys and 3 children from a previous relationship, and not dealing with any of that and just jumping into another relationship. It was just, that was the beginning really for me. And I think throughout the experiences that I've had, the anxiety and the insecurities that I had within the relationship didn't help. And then with how I hadn't dealt with the guilt and the shame that everything had happened in my previous relationship and how it ended, and the amount of people that I'd hurt, and mainly my children, the shame I carried for that, that itself wasn't great, and I hadn't dealt with that. And then I continued. I think I fell pregnant really quickly after my twins, and we decided to keep the baby. And then at 17 weeks we found out she didn't have a heartbeat, and that was really traumatic. And that was something that I wasn't dealing with anything. I didn't, for me at the time, I didn't have time. I couldn't deal with I just didn't have time. I had 5 children. I was mummy too, and life was lifing, and I just couldn't deal with it. I didn't want to deal with it as well, but I just didn't know how to. Like, how do you unpack all that as well as trying to survive life and be a mum and everything else? And that in itself, how awful is that? Just trying to survive life. That's just not how, that in itself is just so wrong. I see that now, but when you're actually in it, it's literally survival. You just have to, it's just surviving each day. And that for me is how I lived for the last 7 years of my life. And it just, I think I wasn't dealing with anything. Traumas were happening, things were happening. It was intense. There was lots going on in the relationship. I think there was lots going on with my children, and then COVID, and then my mum passed away at the end of 2020, and I then fell pregnant with my rainbow baby, which I know he was gifted to me to help me, because I was smoking weed at one point, and it didn't help me whatsoever. I think I did it for all the wrong reasons. I felt I wanted to connect with my partner because he drank and smoked a lot, and that for me, I didn't do any of those things, and I felt, and it was ridiculous when I think of it, but it's what I chose to do. But when I fell pregnant with my youngest son, I feel like it was a gift from my mum. I really do. He was my gift, because she knew I would always take care of myself. When I was pregnant, I wouldn't drink. I didn't do anything I shouldn't. Took such good care of myself. And I think by that time, I'd lost a tremendous amount of weight. I wasn't healthy. I wasn't eating well. I was just in complete and utter survival mode. And I think my anxiety and my anxiousness and my overthinking, I'm that person. I just don't eat. I'm not hungry when I'm feeling like that. And the relationship in itself was so consuming. It was like a huge obsession, and that's not anyone else's fault but my own. I chose it to be that way, but it was so consuming that the last 7 years have been an absolute blur. But I fell pregnant with my son, and then I had him, and I think I suffered with baby blues quite badly, and I think the labour was very different. I had a cesarean, and I've never experienced that before, and that really affected me. I think just everything about it was just very hard on, but I was so in love with this tiny little baby that needed me, and I just remember kept crying, and I felt so guilty because I was so happy of having this newborn baby, but I just felt such sadness. And I also do very much believe, it could have been baby blues, but I do believe that that was the beginning of my menopause journey, because yeah, things really started changing. I think the year carried on, and then I know it was that Christmas, I think I got COVID, and I think my anxiety was at all-time high, not just for my own health but for my children's health. Like I would get sick, they would get sick, and my mind was on overdrive. My overthinking, my anxiety was just through the roof. It was terrifying, to be honest, but it wasn't good for my children either, because I literally wouldn't sleep. I would just be watching them sleep when they were poorly, and I literally, the amount of times I took them to A&E because I was just convinced something awful was happening to them. And yeah, and it just continued like that, and things just, and then the next year, I don't know, things around my family and things that came out regarding my mum's will that had a huge, I will go delve into that. That's something that, yeah, it had a huge impact on me, and the decisions that were made there, and the lack of decision and the lack of thought and how that would impact me for the rest of my life was life-changing for me. And I believe very much that was the beginning of my real awakening that I didn't even realise, because after that was my life, just everything around me just crumbled around me. Everything that I once saw as home and just crumbled, and I felt so much anger towards my mum because of how that had made me feel, and the choices that she had made, and how no one had thought how that would impact me for the rest of my life. That might have not been anything to anyone else, but actually for my whole life I've not felt good enough, and I had to face every version of me. When I had the addiction, when I've been unfaithful, I had to face everyone, and it was spoken about by family so openly. But I'm really glad it was, because I am who I am today because I had to face them. It wasn't brushed under the carpet. I wasn't protected. I had to deal with it and I had to face it head on. And I think in that, it did really hurt me, because I felt that my mum telling me that she'd forgiven me, and that all she ever wanted was for me to feel good enough. Well, in that moment, and in that one decision, it just made me realise that clearly she didn't think I was good enough. And I really struggled with that. And as a mum myself, I could never let any one of my children feel any different from the other. I love my children equally in their own beautiful, unique way. And knowing that she was such a spiritual person, I just couldn't get my head around it. And I was just in a really bad place. I had to take everything down. I had this beautiful corner with her urn and a picture, and I just had to take it all down. I couldn't have it. The hurt. And I know one of my sisters, I didn't expect anything different, my youngest sister, but my other sister, I thought we were closer, and it just everything that I once knew to be home and felt home, and the people that I relied on and sought comfort from, it was gone. But in that, I know now that had to happen that way. I was so codependent on everyone else and outside of me. I never trusted myself. Throughout my whole of my life, I've relied on either my mum or my sisters to constantly reassure me that I'm doing the right thing. And I finally got to a point where there was no one there but me. I had to, yes, my children, but they're my children, and the betrayal that I felt and the hurt that I felt, it hadn't happened to them, and I didn't want them to see my mum any differently, because that was their nanny, and they didn't have to. That wasn't their, this was going on for me, and I didn't want that to affect them in any other way. And I know for a while I'd really struggled with that, but then I got to a point where I was like, no, I can't. It's not fair. They loved nanny, and they don't, and that's how it's meant to be. And so for me, it was a real battle. And for a good year, I didn't speak to anyone. And then it got to a point where I was like, I felt guilt because I wasn't being there for my sisters when they were grieving my mum. And I did. And I thought, oh God, my mum and dad will want me to be there. I'm the eldest. I need to sort it out. I need to stop feeling like this. It's not helping anyone. Ultimately, it wasn't their choice. They just followed through with what my mum wanted. It was just, yeah. And so I did reach out and I did try and rebuild things and I did try and make an effort, and I did to an extent, but it just, for me, it just never felt. And I think I hadn't dealt with anything. I was just trying to move through it all in just the best way I could. But I know the depression got really, really bad for me. And I think it was then that I realised, oh, it was 2023. To be honest, the 7 years are an absolute blur for me. But I know, yeah, it was probably around then that I know my sister did, she said to me, because I think I was so fearful, my anxiety was so bad, I was so scared of taking antidepressants, you hear, and for me I was like, I don't want to mask it, I don't want to just mask covering up what's feeling, I want to actually know why I'm feeling like this, I want to actually get to the root cause of what's causing me to feel so depressed, and I don't want to be here anymore. And it, yeah, and she did, I remember her getting me the supplements, and they did, and it was only when I ran out of them and I didn't have the money to get them, and didn't take them for about a week and a half to 2. I can't remember, but I know it hit me really hard just how much they had made a difference to me, because my depression and my anxiety came back tenfold, and it was crippling to the point I didn't want to leave the house. I was petrified to leave the house. Every time I left the house, I ended up having to take CBD oil. And there was something else that they say for children to take, but it's just meant to help calm you. It's from Holland and Barrett. I can't remember what it's called, but I remember they're like little drops that I had to take, and I remember that was the only way, like the thought of anyone speaking to me. Like I had to get the bus to take my children to school, and I remember literally praying, please don't anyone talk to me, because I had experienced, even where I was living, we were living in a house share, and there was other people that I spoke to and would talk to all the time, but I remember having conversations with them, and I literally, it was like my body was floating. I was floating out of my body, and it was the most terrifying, and this panic that came, I was just like, and I just made some excuse up and I had to go away, and the panic, I realise now they were panic attacks, but at the time I didn't fully understand, and it was just terrifying. And I thought I was having a heart attack at one point. I literally could feel myself. I was standing in front of the fridge, and it was just the most terrifying thing. And it was then I had to, and they did, like, the doctors were amazing. They were so good. They did all these tests on me because I was so convinced I was going to have a heart attack. It was just consuming and terrifying, and just, it was the lowest of low. And it did get to the point where I didn't want to be here anymore. I remember waking up and just sobbing and just feeling nothing, the nothingness, the emptiness, the passion. And when people would say, oh, there must be things you'd love to do, I think I'd lost myself so much. I hadn't dealt with my past relationship. I jumped into this new relationship, and it was so unhealthy. It was so toxic in its own way. I was so consumed and obsessed. There was red flags and triggers all over the place. I had that, and then I lost my mum, and then I had my son, and then I was feeling like baby blues, and I had the menopause. I was going through the menopause, and I had so many symptoms, and that didn't help because my anxiety was through the roof. I was getting symptoms left, right and centre, sinus issues, headaches, pounding, digestive issues where I was just on the toilet constantly. I'd lost weight. They were then concerned, and that scared the shit out of me, because then after about 6 weeks of just going to the toilet, it'd be like, yep, like water. They were like, why did you leave it so long? And that made me panic. And to be honest, I frigging knew. And this is where my intuition has been there. And when is another thing, listen to your body. When you know something's going on with you, listen to it. Because there was a part of me, I think I'm someone that does a lot of research. And when I felt I was getting all these things and these symptoms, and it came with the menopause, and I thought, holy shit, yeah. But I know now they speak about it, but back then it wasn't. It was like the normal, like the few symptoms that you'd get, hot flushes, the mood swings, the anxiety, but there is so many more symptoms that you get, and it literally affects your hormones affect every part of your body. And there was just things happening to me left, right and centre. It was literally, but my stomach, I remember reading something, and they said that it affects your stomach, that it can cause diarrhea, but they don't speak about it. The doctors don't officially call it a symptom. When I went and I questioned, the doctor was, She wasn't very nice. And she just completely dismissed me. And literally, I had a colonoscopy. I literally had all these tests, blood tests, goodness knows what, to try and, because they were worried about cancer and goodness, and which is great that they were being thorough. But at the end of it, 18 months later, I just learned to deal with it. And I learned that it was something I had to deal with, and I had to try and maybe just like turn it. It was even like gluten and everything else, and dairy, and tested for all of that, and all came back normal. But what they decided, 18 months later, I ended up going and finally got to see a doctor. They actually said to me that it was, oh, how did they? I know it was colitis, but it was, oh, I can't remember this, what they call it, but non-specific colitis. And I sat and I asked this doctor, and I said to him, I'm going through the menopause. I know I'm going through perimenopause. I did say to the doctor 18 months ago that it's to do with that. I really think it's just, I'm sorry, but it's too much of a coincidence for me to be getting all these symptoms and suddenly that affects, and it not be linked to that. And he actually sat there and said, yeah, quite possibly could be because of that. And those 18 months, it was really stressful. And because I was going through so much anxiety around my health, that just amplified it even worse. And I know they have been thorough, and people can say, well, it's great, but they dismissed what I said so quickly. And it was really, and deep down I knew that there was just a knowing that it wasn't any of those bad things that they were testing me for. It was because I was going through menopause, like perimenopause, and it just affects everything. And it did. I was getting heartburn, heart palpitations, which I know is a really common one, but the hot flushes were overwhelming for me, and the headaches. There's literally the list of things that I have, even to the fact of, it's like neurological, it affects everywhere. But I would be standing and doing my makeup, but I'd be doing all my skincare, and I would be standing there and I could feel like my hands tremoring, and like, oh, it was just, and I had to really stand. And when I looked more into it, that it affects everything, your brain, everything. And I remember breathing and standing, because I could automatically get myself into a panic attack because I was so fearful of everything. But I learned breathing was such a huge factor that helped control and get me out of my mind and get me out of that pattern and that spiral that I could feel was happening. But it did get to a point where it was overwhelming for me that I just didn't want to be here anymore. I was waking up crying, sobbing. My poor boys had to witness me being that way. My anxiety was through the roof. My relationship was on, he was coping as best as he could. He didn't know half of it because I was doing a lot of it by myself, because I was having panic attacks when I was with my little one. I could feel it coming on, and I was just in the lounge, and I could feel it coming on, and I just clung to my baby for dear life and sat and calmed myself through that, because I could feel it happening. And there was nothing, but it was just, yeah. And it was then that I finally reached out to my GP, and I at the time was taking HRT, and I said, please, can I up it, because my anxiety is really bad and my hot flushes were quite bad, and I thought upping my HRT would help. And they obviously went through they know best, and they went through everything, and they said that the best thing for me to do was to take antidepressants, was to try them, because that not only does that help with their anxiety, but it helps with hot flushes, which I didn't know. And it took me a month to actually even go onto them, because I took them and I had them, I picked the prescription up, but I was so afraid of the symptoms and side effects of what that would do. It overwhelmed me that I was like, no, come on, you'll be all right, I can cope. But a month went down and it was just, nothing changed, and I was just it just got darker and darker for me, to the point I didn't want to be here anymore. And I would never do anything silly. I would never do anything, and I think the only reason that I'm still here is because of my children. And first week we were in a lower dose, it was like placebo, and then I was just okay, and I was feeling okay. I didn't get any side effects, and I continued taking them. And after a month or two, I could tell I felt slightly lighter. I wouldn't say the anxiety had completely gone, but it was more manageable than it had been. And as I continued to take it, that did help me. And it helped me get to a point where I was able to cope with life again. And I was being a little bit more present with my children, and I wasn't being so lost. But I know the relationship that I was in was really affecting me mentally as well. I know that that had a huge impact on me. I didn't trust, and I was having red flags everywhere, and that had a huge impact on me, that I was just in survival, and just everything, and I just hadn't dealt with anything, and but at least I was able to, I wasn't feeling the depths of darkness that I had been, and that for me was amazing. And I continued and I carried on, and through that, so much life stuff was happening. And then I think the beginning of last year was a shit show. We were in the living situation we were in, and we just didn't see a way out of it. And so we were involved in a scam. Oh, it was just awful. And I had both my main bank accounts closed because of my being linked to the scams, and it was just, it was really, and I think it was that, I don't know, it was just, I woke up one day and it was just like a complete I was just like lost in this lack victim mindset, and we just couldn't get out. And it was literally like overnight I woke up, and I think that was the real beginning of my awakening. But I just felt so different. I felt so positive. I was so full of gratitude. I was so thankful for everything we did have. We had a roof over our head. Yes, it might have been falling apart around us, and it was, we're living with people that were causing not great, it just wasn't great at all in any shape or form. It was just not. But I was just so grateful. We had food in the fridge, we had a roof over our head, we had hot water, and our children, when I look at my children, they were happy. And what could I complain about? And that's, for me, where everything changed. And I know very deeply so much that I have experienced all I have, and I've experienced depression and the anxiety and everything, so that I am living proof that you can get through that. Seeking help, asking for help is nothing wrong with that. And I know, yes, I was on antidepressants, but I hadn't, and I did go to see a counsellor a couple of times, but I don't know, for me personally, it just wasn't, I just felt I had so much to unpack that I hadn't dealt with. I think I still wasn't ready to really fully unpack it, because I was still lost in my insecurities within my relationship, and I just was still just in survival and just coping, and the antidepressants just made me be able to cope with the everyday things a lot better. But definitely last year, I think without doubt it was that what happened, and I just had to cope with it. And my partner at the time, he didn't know, and he just drank himself more, and I was okay. I didn't have a choice. I had to deal with it and get on with it and hold it together, because I couldn't crumble too. My children needed me to be strong, because at least one of us needed to be through that. And I know that's just how he deals with things, but that for me just wasn't a choice. I just had to face it and deal with it. But I know very much, and I'm realizing that more and more, that my body couldn't take any more density and shit, which is why I believe very much that my awakening was activated last year in October, because I hadn't dealt with anything. Yes, I'd overcome past versions in the way I learned how to, but I had never dealt with what led me to them. I didn't deal with any of the underlying healing. Just, we have these things for a reason. Dis-ease, depression, anxiety, all these things affect our body because we're storing things that our body's not meant to store. And it gets to a point where you have to face them head on. the only way to be able to heal yourself fully is facing every single demon and darkness and trigger and pattern and betrayal and experience head on. And it's really freaking overwhelming. But my awakening, I didn't have a choice. Actually, yes, you do have a choice, but I think when I fully awakened and everything was unfolding and I was receiving the messages and I was so divinely led, and it was just such a deep inner knowing that everything that I had experienced in my life, I'd experienced for a reason. Because throughout my life, I kept thinking, I can't just be going through all of this and experiencing all of this for no reason. There's got to be more to it. I just didn't know what. But when my awakening was happening and I started receiving all these from channelers and tarot readers, and I was receiving the messages and I was feeling and hearing things, and I was getting clarity. Like, I wasn't trusting my intuition, but I was getting messages confirming that what I was feeling was right, and it was just the most powerful thing. And it was just this deep inner knowing that I had to do this, that yes, I could go, no, I don't want to, but at some point it's going to happen. I have to face this head on now, because the desire and the pull to know that I am a soul having a human experience and to be so fully awakened just felt so true, so real for me, that I was divinely led, and I surrendered. And don't get me wrong, my human and my ego and my mind were telling me all the ways that it wasn't right and it was scary, but I did it, and I went through the dark night of the soul, and it felt like, and the thing is, it can feel like depression and anxiety and all these things and all the old triggers and all the old patterns coming up makes you feel as you did when you were in them. But there's a reason for that, because you've got to face them head on. You have got to cope with them and deal with them, because that's the only way that you fully heal yourself and you release the density and the energy that's been stored in you that is not yours to be kept. It's not meant to be stored in your body. You're meant to release it. It's meant to be worked through. You're meant to heal through it so that you can grow and evolve as a soul, so that you can continue on your journey here. And oh my God, the only reason our bodies suffer from depression and anxiety and panic attacks and disease in our body is because our bodies are screaming that things aren't right. You have got to face this. The density that you're storing in your body is not meant to be there. You have got to face it. You have got to heal it. And until you are ready to deal with it and face it head on, it will continue. But it will get to the point, as it did mine, where my awakening was activated and I didn't have a choice. I had to. You do have a choice, and I say you don't have a choice, but for me it was just, I wanted to deal with it. I didn't want to survive anymore. I wanted to thrive. I wanted to be alive. I wanted to live. I wanted to feel joy and passion and love and excitement again for my life, because I had spent the last 7 years in complete and utter darkness. I had no passion for anything. I was just an anxious frigging mess, and I didn't want to survive life anymore. So for me, I knew so deep in my soul, I had to do this for me. However hard and challenging it was going to be, it was just a deep knowing that this is what I have got to do to be able to be the person that I was always meant to be for my soul to be completely and utterly free for the first time it's ever been in my life. I chose to have a freaking challenge. I chose for my soul to come here in this human experience, to go down a dark path, to experience all I have, for me to be who I can, to be living proof that you can overcome it. You can overcome anything. Your soul chose for you to have those experiences for a reason, because they knew you could overcome it, and overcoming it, you are the most powerful version of you, finally choosing yourself, loving yourself, respecting yourself enough to not be in relationships that aren't fulfilling you the way that you know deep in your soul you should be feeling. You shouldn't. Real love doesn't make you question anything. It doesn't make you question yourself. You don't second guess yourself. You don't have red flags everywhere. You don't have this gut wrenching feeling that that person is not being honest with you. in some way. You're not overthinking it. That you don't feel that when you're in real true love and in a healthy relationship, an equally healthy relationship. This always, it should be an equal give and take, and it's just, oh my God, the realizations that I've had is just like, I know that I would never allow myself, I have got so much more discernment in me, and I respect myself too much now to ever allow myself to choose relationships like that. I know who I am now. I have always been that person, and that's where it's been such a struggle for me, because past versions of myself, it's got to a point where I'm just like, this is not me. Those versions that and those things that I did, the addictions and the way that is not, I just felt like it wasn't, and it was just, and people can say people pleasing, but I just longed for others to feel good. I longed for others to feel happiness and joy and excitement, and I just love love, and I love to make people feel the best versions of themselves. And that is because that was my soul. All the shit that had piled and the density that had piled up, my soul was so lost in all of that, which is why the other day I felt so like, my God, for the first time, I feel like my soul is free. I feel like me. The love and light that I feel is exuding from me has always been there. It's just been full of density and darkness that I chose to experience, so that I can be living proof that you can overcome it, and you can, once you fully heal yourself, you can free yourself from dis-ease, anxiety, depression, all those awful things that consume so many of us. You can overcome from healing yourself from the inside out. Yes, resources outside of yourself and ways and techniques and meditations and so many different ways to heal yourself. But ultimately, it's choosing yourself and saying, I can't do this anymore. I've got to heal myself. I've got to choose myself. And however many people around you say that that's selfish by you doing the things that you need to do to choose yourself. And I'm telling you now, it is not delusional and it is not selfish. It's the only way to be in the new earth. Choosing and loving yourself, that's the way that it should always have been. But the programs and what they've told us and the systems that they've said that is real and we've all just gone along with for so long, well, it's clearly not working. And that's why so many people are awakening right now to the reality and to the truth of why they're here. They're being activated for a reason, because we have come here for a far bigger mission than ourselves. We're here to change evolution. We're here to help humanity move on from what has been made to believe is real. The new earth is just so full of love and light. And yes, it's not ignoring the darkness. Like, I know that I'm going to have my darkness. It walks alongside me. But it's living proof that I've been that, but I know I'm the light I am. Yes, I've been that darkness, and the darkness has made me who I am today, that I can be this light and love that I know that I was always meant to be. But going through all of that, that's got me to who I am. It's got me through all the experiences, and I've had all the experiences so that I can be living proof that and I am relatable, that you can be all those frigging versions and still heal yourself, and you can still be who you were always meant to be. But you have to face your demons and your darkness. You have to face everything that you haven't faced. And that's the only way that you can fully heal yourself from the inside out. But it is so doable. And I'm living proof that you can. And for anyone out there in that darkness of depression, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid of the unknown. Because I know for me, my mind was telling me all the ways that me taking antidepressants was going to be horrifying, and all the ways it wasn't. It helped me. It helped me to a point where I was able to deal with everyday life again. Yes, it didn't take away the anxiety that I was lost in, but me finally choosing myself and ending a relationship that was so unhealthy for me. There was so much love there, and there still is, but I know so deep that it was now. I know it wasn't meant to be forever. It was part of my activation for my awakening. It was just another lesson for me to have had to learn, for me to be able to be at that point in time where I needed to be activated, where my awakening fully started. And so for me, I just have love and gratitude for everyone in the last 7 years. Although at the time I've had resentment and just couldn't understand, now I fully do. And I've been able to let go all of that because I know that it was all part of my journey. I had to experience all of that to be who I am today, fully awakened new human who is meant to be here to be a beacon of light and living proof that you can be all those past versions. You can be in the depths of depression, but you can get yourself out of it. Your soul would not have chosen for you to have those experiences if it didn't know you could overcome them, and to actually fully deal with them head on and heal them so that you can move forward the rest of your life without chains and ties and the density in your body, just living the best version of you. That is just fucking priceless. When you've suffered with mental health, being able to get out of it and to feel love, joy, excitement, passion, is that in itself is the most powerful thing for me, because I have been lost in it. And one thing I've realized myself today is I was struggling today, and I know that it's because of what I know. Part of my mission of what I'm here to do is to help heal others from the inside out. Today it came to me, well, you're going to practice what you preach. I'm sitting and saying to you, when you're in the depths of depression, all the things that you can do. Today I felt really low and sad and very empty, and I just knew it was like, practice what you preach. You're going to practice what you preach. You're going to do your breathing. You're going to meditate. Because for me, those things would have been the only things when I was in the depths of it that I could have actually done and made an impact on me, because my passion for love and music and dance was just gone. I had none of that. So that wasn't even an option when I was in that. Whereas now, but today, I listened. I did the breathing. I did a meditation. And another thing that has really lifted me, talking. Get a voice recorder. Just bloody talk. What you are feeling, how you're feeling. Express it. Speak it out. Not to anyone else, but to just you. Speak it out, because the difference it makes. I know since me speaking and voicing how I'm feeling, I've overcome that feeling. I've allowed myself to relieve myself of some of that energy, and that's what we're needing to do. That's what healing is, by being able to witness it, see it, what's coming up in that time. And when you can get lost and think, oh my God, I'm getting lost in that spiral again. Don't get lost in it. Witness it, see it, feel it, and then be okay. Do your breathing to be able to get yourself so you don't go into a spiral and panic mode. Do your breathing, because it really gets you out of your head and into your heart. And then once you're there, then go to a meditation. Do a meditation, because it clears you in a way, even if it takes you goodness knows how long to actually fully be able to listen and connect and shut your mind off to a certain extent. It is so powerful. There are so many techniques and ways of being able to overcome anxiety, overcome depression, overcome and heal yourself from the inside out. Yeah. I'm so passionate to help. I want everyone to feel the way I am, because I know how sad and lonely and empty that can feel. That depression can make, I know. And I'm not saying that it's been the worst for me, because I know I'm sure there's others, but it all comes down to the same thing. It's trauma and things we haven't dealt with, which is causing the depression to come out with us. And so it is getting to the root cause of that and to start healing that, because once you start healing that, your depression will be released slowly but surely, I assure you. And the fact that I was taking antidepressants for a good couple of years, and for the last 4 months I've not taken them. And there's only been one or 2 days that I've actually had, and I know it's me purging because that's how it works. Things come up and it can make you feel like you're in the depression again. And it's realizing, and I think there was a couple of days, and your brain tells you, and it tries to label everything that, oh, it's because you're depressed again, you need to start taking your antidepressants. And I did. I went on and I put a repeat prescription for my antidepressants again. And as the day went on, I don't know, there was just this, you're not depressed. It came to me, you're not depressed. You're purging. You're letting go of what no longer you're needing. You need to release. You've got to let go of it. It's coming up for a reason. Feel it. Don't suppress it. Feel it. See it. Witness it. And just let it go with love. And it doesn't just magically go away. It will keep coming back. But every time it came back, it was less. Didn't impact me the same way. It didn't affect me to the point that no longer it's not coming the way it did. And even today, when I felt the sadness and I was thinking, what is going on with me? Oh, again, I'm so sick of this. And then it was, well, you need to practice what you preach. You know, you want to be that person to put out that you can heal yourself. You know, prove it. No, I did. I spoke my way through it. I spoke on here. I meditated. I did my breathing, and I feel so much friggin' lighter. I am living proof that those things really friggin' work. But I hope you're all having a really glorious Sunday because it's beautiful here. But yeah, I'll catch you all soon.